Welcome to the Insightful Player Podcast with your host, Chrissy Carew. In each episode, Chrissy interviews NFL players and other professional athletes to help transform our culture to be inclusive, kinder, and more loving. We hope to turn everyone into insightful players in their own lives. Chrissy is also the author of the book Insightful Player, featuring over a dozen stories where football pros lead a bold movement of hope. You can learn more about her book, Chrissy's coaching programs, and more episodes of this show at www.theinsightfulplayer.com. You can also watch other episodes on YouTube and listen through all the major podcast platforms. Now, here's the host of Insightful Player, Chrissy Carew.
Welcome back to the Insightful Player Podcast. I'm very excited. We have a very, very special guest on today. Kevin Rempel. You're going to love his story. Unfortunately, at the very young age of 23, he had a horrible motorcycle accident and he became paralyzed. And he had overcome a tremendous battle of both depression and learning how to live with this disability after being so healthy. But you won't believe this. He went from that to actually being a big part of earning a gold medal in Paralympics, as well as a bronze medal. I mean, he's unbelievable. He encourages all of us to adopt a mindset where our grit outweighs our challenges. And he's a master at that. And he's going to teach us how to adopt a hero's mindset to help you step forward with more courage and confidence to drive unbelievable results and transformative change. Like, it's amazing. Kevin, I am so happy to have you here on this podcast, and now especially anointed insightful player. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to hang out with you, Chrissy.
Yeah, I mean, your story is unbelievable. It's like jaw-dropping, and it's been a long road. I mean, you were doing this fun motorcycle acrobatics or something that caused your accident. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, when I was 23 years old, my dream was freestyle motocross. So most people will be familiar with that in the sport of like the X Games, where you're jumping dirt bikes and hanging off the back, doing things like a Superman sea crab. At the age of 23, I feel like I achieved my childhood dreams. I performed my first jump show on Canada Day, July 1st of 2006. And then 2 weeks later at my second show, I ended up crashing. In that crash, I ended up breaking my back, my pelvis, and my ribs, and I was instantly paralyzed. And then that sent me down what was already a pretty crazy life experience prior to amplifying life with a disability, then sending me into the world of Paralympic sport.
That's amazing. And prior to you being paralyzed and having that accident, your father had an accident as well, and he was paralyzed. Can you share a story about that?
Yeah, when I was 19 years old, my dad and I were out deer hunting, building a tree stand, when one of the branches my dad was standing on broke. And so he fell 2 stories to the ground, became a complete paraplegic just a few months from retirement. So my mom literally had both husband and son paralyzed, both with spinal cord injuries, in the same house at the exact same time within just under a 5-year window.
Gosh, she must be such a soldier. Unbelievable. And your father really had tremendous depression and ended up taking his life. That must have been so hard for all of you.
Yeah, he struggled with his injury. I'm not naive to think being injured in your 50s compared to your 20s is certainly a different story. But my dad very much took on a victim's mindset towards his situation, which sent him in a downward spiral of depression to a point where he felt like he couldn't get out. And after 5 years, yes, he ended up taking his own life.
Oh, I can't imagine that. I mean, and then here you are injured, and you I mean, anybody would be depressed from that. But you were so determined to walk again, and they told you never would, and you started one toe at a time. I mean, I can't imagine that. Where did you get that inner drive when everyone around you, all the professional doctors were saying, you're not going to be able to walk again? How did you do that?
Yeah, what I speak about today as a keynote speaker, and what I knew at the time, but didn't have like a name or a way to put it into words necessarily, is that today I speak about adopting what I like to call the hero mindset. And the hero mindset is about focusing on small things that make a big difference to become a hero in your own movie. When I was paralyzed, what I knew is that I wanted to be just like the heroes that I looked up to in my life, which at that time were other action sports athletes. And there are countless examples of people, not just in sport, but in life and business, who, when they get knocked down, they pick themselves back up. And for myself, at that age, not only was I inspired by those heroes in my life, the people that I looked up to and admired for their qualities and their characteristics, and sometimes for their accomplishments, but usually it was the character of those individuals, that I knew that I wanted to be just like them. And so at that time, I tried to adopt my own mindset about and ask myself the question, what would my hero do? And so I knew that I wanted to be my own comeback story. I started documenting my progress. Back in the day, before cell phones even existed, I had a camcorder with one of those 9mm DV tapes that were actual physical tapes, mini cassette tapes you'd put in a camera, and you'd try to avoid getting dirty because it wouldn't work otherwise. And I just asked my therapist, not my surgeon. The surgeon is the one who said you'll likely never walk. But my therapist, Chris, I said, how am I going to walk? And he said, the first place to start is to try to wiggle your toe. So every night, every morning, I just laid in bed, was trying to wiggle my toe. And I had no results until after about 6 weeks. I finally got my toe to move. And in my mind, I said to myself, if I've done it once, I can do it again. And just to keep going. And that mentality is what led me to then, about a week later, wiggle a second toe, and then about a week later, wiggle about 3 toes, and then 3 more, and then an ankle, and then eventually getting myself onto crutches. But to me, in order to become a hero in our own movie, like I say, it's about focusing on small things that make a big difference. And it doesn't matter what that goal is, whether it's in a personal life or professional life. When we start out, it seems so big, so far out of reach, and so far unattainable. But everything that's significant in our life is achieved by taking things one toe or one step at a time.
That's unbelievable. I mean, and how long did that go on, being in physical therapy, until you were actually able to walk without crutches? How long did that take?
Well, it was about 6 weeks wiggling that first toe. I was in rehab for 4 months at the facility, walking and riding again back on my bike in a year, actually. But it was 3 to 4 years to have built the strength and endurance and stamina that I began to actually live my life day to day with minimal complications, I guess you could say. To this day, I'm 17 years post-accident, and I still struggle with muscle atrophy, pins and needles, muscle spasms. When you have a spinal cord injury, your bowel and bladder are forever, for most people, your bowel and bladder are forever affected. And so I have a series of complications that I live with an invisible disability. But on the outside, I walk around like nobody would know the difference. And so it took about 3 to 4 years to find my groove. And my life today is more about maintaining what I have than it is about trying to, in too many different ways, make some gains.
Wow, that's amazing. And after, did you say 1 year, you were back on your bike?
Yeah, I never have ever jumped my motorcycle again, but I was able to still get on my bike and go ride with my friends. And it was another example of asking yourself the question, what would your hero do? When a hero gets knocked down, if you think about the movies, I speak about becoming a hero in your own movie. When you think about the movies that inspire you the most, usually they begin with that hero, with that star within the film, encountering some kind of adversity. And then the entire movie is about that person overcoming that adversity to come out on top. And we don't watch movies intentionally to see someone fall down and never get back up again. And so if you think about, again, asking yourself a question, when a hero gets knocked down, what does your hero do? They keep going. They keep fighting. They keep picking themselves back up. That's the hero's journey. And when we get knocked down, it's easy for many people to mentally fall into the trap thinking that this is the end of the movie versus it's the beginning of the movie. And so each time that we get knocked down, it's my belief, again, for us to adopt a mindset, aka the hero's mindset, to ask yourself, what would your hero do? For me, when I get knocked down, I tell many people about how my friend Chris was filming the event that day, because in action sports, we want to capture everything on film. And so Chris captured my crash on film, and then he put the camera down. He runs over to me, finds his way through the crowd and the paramedics, reaches down, grabs my hand, and said, "Remps, I love you, man." And I literally grabbed Chris's hand, and I reached back up and I said, "Chris, I love you too, man. You are filming this, right?" and people start to think like, you're like, what the hell? Like, you're crazy. Why in the world was that going through your mind at that time? And I kid you not, Chris literally apologized to me. And he stepped back and he turned the camera back on.
Wow.
The reason why I have footage and images to show people during my keynote presentations about this journey is because Chris turned the camera back on. He captured that moment, the literal moment of the beginning of my comeback. And then I continued to document my journey in a recovery, which has resulted in a couple of mini documentaries about this journey. But the reason why I share that as a literal example, even when I was laying on the ground paralyzed in that exact moment with what felt like a knife literally stabbed through my spine, twisting in the middle of my back, is that I knew, just like my heroes, I wanted to be that comeback story. And the best part about those stories is seeing the hero go through the trauma, through the tragedy, because it's so much more real. And I don't believe that everybody needs to go through a significant traumatic injury to decide in their mind what they want their story to be. Your journey can be something as simple as maybe your relationship ended, or maybe you've lost that dream job, or maybe you're in financial debt and you need to claw yourself out of that. Or maybe you're an immigrant and you just moved to the country and now you need to start all over. You've got perfect physical and mental health, but now you got to start all over again. Or maybe you're like living it up where you came from. Like, there's so many different journeys that we are all on that are unique to us. But the one thing that is common is we can relate to the struggle, and we can relate to the mental challenges we face, and we can also relate to what those comeback stories look like.
That's amazing. I mean, like, being in that moment, I did see the video of your crash, and I was taken aback, and all the bruises, and it was incredible. You must have done a lot of inner work to get to that point, at that moment when you had that crash, to have this hope inside you and this drive, to have a wonderful hero outcome. What did you do leading up to that in your life that got you to that place, to have that clarity and that level of hope and resilience in that moment. What can you share about that, Kevin?
So leading up to that moment, I did nothing intentional. It was all, I would call it a byproduct of my environment. And so what I mean by that is what I love, another example of what I love to share during my keynotes and the workshops I deliver for, especially for corporate audiences, is that often many leaders and organizations are looking to create a culture filled with courage and grit. And what served me so well when a massive life-changing adversity showed up in my life is that it's in the culture of extreme sport athletes that when you fall down, you pick yourself back up because that's just what you do. It is not you fall down and you think about it. It's automatic. And it's what's celebrated. It's what's often celebrated in these sports. Because take skateboard. Skateboarding is one of my favorite examples, because if anyone's ever watched a skateboarding movie, you can see the examples of time and time and time and time and time and time again where someone is trying to land a trick and they're trying to do a 50-50 board slide on a railing, and they lose the board. They mess up the steps. They fall down, and they finally land it. And it's like, that's what's celebrated in the sport. But in business and in life, it's like we shy away from that because we're afraid to be embarrassed in front of others if we fail on our journey towards that next podium, that next step. And so for me, it was just in my blood, in my mind, in my heart, and my spirit that I'm already embedded with the desire that just because I fell down doesn't mean this is over. And so like what I hope is that people start to see, it's like, and I challenge you to ask yourself the question, like, how can you adopt a mindset where when you fall down, you pick yourself back up, because that's just what you do. That's just who you are. There's no other way than to keep doing that through business and through life. And the more that we can adopt that as a mindset and as a just part of our life, our culture, our character, that's what's going to serve us when this adversity strikes.
Wow. And I think it's people need to believe that that's possible for them, you know? And right now with the crazy culture that we're living in, and, you know, there's so many people have experienced a lot of loss, a lot of heartache, and there's a lot of anger out there. This is something that would be really valuable for them to really take to heart. You know, because, you know, we're all about putting out positive messages to bring out the best in everyone, right? To be more inclusive, kinder, and more loving. And your message fits so perfectly into that. You know, you raise yourself up to be the best you can be, and you're so willing to fall down. You know, you're not afraid to make mistakes, and a lot of people are afraid to make mistakes, and especially in front of others. So that's a tremendous lesson. That we can all take to heart, Kevin. You know, you've really mastered that.
Yeah, I would also thank you for that. And I'd like to add on to that. One of the best things I believe we can do in order to be courageous, resilient, and have grit throughout our lives and our journey is to be willing to accept and admit that you're going to have these moments. I think, as another example, so when I was paralyzed, I would go down the hall to therapy and keep passing a room of someone who had a skiing accident and was paralyzed. And every single day, I'm not saying anybody's wrong, trying to make them feel shame for this, but every day I pass this guy, he'd be bawling his eyes out. I can't believe this happened. Oh my God, me. Why is my life over? This and that. And I feel like he was surprised that an accident happened, and he wasn't willing to accept it. And his mind was still stuck back on the hill. His mind was still at the scene of the crash. And the longer that we let that hang, the longer we're stuck living in a remembered past or perhaps maybe a fearful and imagined future. But when I threw my leg over a motorcycle, I knew that a crash could happen. And that served me well, that when it did happen, I'm not sitting there blaming anybody else but myself. I knew this could happen. But if you take a new job during the pandemic, can you think today, hey, maybe I might get laid off. I might be blindsided, and just accept that might happen. When you get married, are we naive to think that, hey, this is going to be the perfect thing to last forever? Or you know what? Maybe something goes wrong and it might end. And that maybe might happen. That's just life. Or you take out a mortgage to buy a house, and then all of a sudden something happens with your job. Like, the more that we can accept that things are going to happen in life, then when they happen, we're not so blindsided because we think it's going to be a linear path. That's not reality. One of the things that served me so well is, I believe, if we can accept things before they happen, especially when they do show up, it allows us to be detached to the outcome and keep focusing on the moment. And that's how you show up every single day, deciding in that moment, what small thing can I focus on today that will make a big difference to help me become a hero in my own movie?
So you're very unattached, which makes you more values driven than fear driven, and it gives you the ability to accept. And also with your attitude, you're also able to realize something great will come from this tragedy or this crisis or this setback. And that's a wonderful mindset for all of us to adopt. And by the way, in addition to courage and grit, you also have loaded with grace. I just have to share that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's like we're all on our own journey. And it's my belief that when we have a setback, there's something in equal proportion on the other side, but we just have to keep going and discover what that is. But if you let that setback hold you back, then you'll be stuck there forever. And the joy is in the journey. The cliche stuff about it's about the journey, not the destination. It's like, I've reached the podium in the Paralympics, but what was most special is not receiving the medal, but the moment I was receiving on the medal and thinking back to the 15 years prior that helped me get to that point of achieving the medal. And the pride and joy was more about who I became along the way and the lessons I learned for the character I've developed than it was about the actual tangible outcome of this physical medal. That's just a representation of the journey. It's not what the journey is all about.
Right. And you were very present. That's another piece. You were very present along your journey. And it just had to be so rewarding after everything you had been through. And I'm sure you're out there giving lots of people hope, because you are the epitome of hope. And that's something we really need. And I know you have a wonderful book, Still Standing. When you have every reason to give up, keep going. And the world needs to hear more of you. We need to get you on the world stage,
Well, I'm working there slowly but surely, one step at a time. I've been speaking now for over 13 years, started off in schools, last 6, 7, 8 years I've been corporate. A lot of work done in Canada, and now I'm actually starting to branch out. I'm actually going to be in New Zealand over the next 3 months this winter, and breaking further into the US market. And also, like, COVID gave me the opportunity to reach a global audience online that I had never even touched previously. So over the last couple of years, I had the privilege of speaking to a few different global organizations, reaching as far as, Turkey and Philippines and Germany. It's been like very rewarding, even seeing the work I've done translated into 6 different languages through the Hero Mindset workbook. It's getting there, and that's the journey.
Right. It's so valuable. It really is. You really have answered a calling, Kevin. And your book, by the way, Kevin has been generous enough to let you download it for free. What is that address again? Oh, I see it. kevinrempel.com/book. And we'll have that in the show notes, so you'll be able to see that and click right on. It's a great read. And some of the things you talk about in the book is what to say to yourself in the most crucial key moments when you want to quit. And we've all been there, where we just, that's it, I've had it. you know? So what kinds of things can you share about that?
Yeah, with the book in particular, you know, especially anyone who's listening who may be struggling, or if you know someone who's struggling and is looking for, like Chrissy, you mentioned here, some inspiration. It's a very real read. I wrote the book with the mindset of sharing the nitty-gritty behind the scenes stuff that I more than often would not speak about on stage, talking about when my dad took his life, what it was like to experience someone else who passed away by suicide. When I had suicidal thoughts, what those moments were like, what did I say to myself to get myself through those moments? I spoke about post-Olympic depression in there, as well as the high moments, the awesome stuff. But I wrote the book with the intention for people to, especially for the people who are really in that struggle today, who are looking for some kind of a connection to someone who's been there, done that, and knows how they feel and how to get out of it. So if anyone listening is feels like they may be there themselves today, especially looking to connect from an athlete's perspective or even a caregiver's perspective too, like one of the things that makes my story unique, when I get the opportunity to share with audiences, is I've lived life on one side supporting a family member. I supported, you know, being there for my dad for 4 years. I was able-bodied, he was paralyzed. Then I was the actual person who experienced it myself. I've lost my ability. I was paralyzed. Dad did not learn to walk. I did learn to walk. Dad took his life. I did not take my life. How did I, you know what I mean? Like there's a family dynamic. There's the support dynamic in terms of like helping someone else. I've been there myself, and it's like that's one of the things that I do love about my experience, is that it's been very well rounded, that I can share from different angles. So if anyone's looking to support someone else struggling or struggling themselves, please go check it out. Just my website is kevinrempel.com, just my name, kevinrempel.com. You can see the tab there, or just go /book and you can download it for free.
Excellent. And what a wonderful gift to give someone you love, right? That's what it's all about. And it just seems like this tragedy that you went through, that you accepted and you made the best out of your situation to the nth degree. It just made you so generous and so loving, and so you have such a drive to contribute to others. It's quite incredible, Kevin. It really is.
I think, I mean, you know, public speaking as an example, it's not everybody's thing to go out in the public and give back. But for me, it was a fluke. I was at family counseling after my dad passed away when I got asked to share my story. Did it once for 5 minutes. They liked it, said, would you do it again? Next thing you know, 13 years later, it's my full-time gig. But I think that when we go through significant challenges, many of us, and myself for sure, find a lot of meaning and purpose in what we've been through, if we can use that to help other people. And so that has been a lot of my joy throughout the years, is that I find connection as well. And it helps me helping other people. So it's fun, and I'm proud of it.
I wish I could keep you in my back pocket every day. One of the leaders that I love is the late Barbara Marx Hubbard. And she always said, crisis is an evolutionary driver. And you're a perfect example, because you've evolved so much as a human being. And it's really amazing. And there are people out there that are just like, you know, when they've lost their purpose, you know, if, you know, for whatever happened, whatever the tragedy may be, what do you want to say to them?
To keep going, and to know that there is hope, and that there will be another side to your story. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was Les Brown who said that hard times have not come to stay, but they have come to pass. And if you feel like you are struggling today, this is not your life. It is just a moment in your life. But as long as you continue to take steps to move forward, like I say, through small things that make a big difference, and adopt that mindset, a hero's mindset, where you keep asking yourself the question, what would your hero do? I believe that each of us have the opportunity to show up and become a hero in our own movie.
One toe at a time.
One
Right?
step, one toe at a time.
I think that's a great story that people really remember whenever they're going through. And I have a belief that I live by, is that when we marry our greatest heartache to our most passionate gifts, that's when we can collectively enhance the quality of the world, you know. And you embody that to the nth degree.
Thank you very much, Chrissy.
Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
Nothing that particularly stands out. I think we ended on some fantastic closing words.
Excellent. And everybody, Kevin is a keynote speaker extraordinaire. I highly recommend. And you're coaching too, aren't you? Are you coaching also?
I'm leaning further into consulting with organizations more than anything else. I do some private coaching as well, but my favorite thing is the keynote and delivering some ongoing workshops or a series where we can support an organization to help their team develop a hero's mindset, so that individually they contribute towards the team's collective success. And you're not only becoming a hero to yourself in that moment, but you're becoming a hero to each other, to your organization, and the communities and the people that you serve.
Talk about a soulful connection, right? That's what your message is all about. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Well, we're going to have you back as much as you want, Kevin. And it's so wonderful to now have you on the Insightful Player team.
Yes.
You're part of the Insightful Player family now. So thank you so much. And everyone, check out his book, Still Standing. When you have every reason to give up, keep going. And we'll have all the links for you in the show notes, and reach out to us. And if anyone needs a keynote speaker, you know where to come. So Kevin, thank you, and we'll see you again soon. And I want to thank you all for listening. And just remember, one toe at a time. Until next time.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
See you
you,
later.
Kevin. Bye-bye. The entire Insightful Player podcast initiative is dedicated to the late Tom Constantino.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Insightful Player podcast with your host, Chrissy Carew. Chrissy is also the author of the book Insightful Player, featuring over a dozen stories where football pros lead a bold movement of hope. You can learn more about her book, Chrissy's coaching programs, and more episodes of the show at www.theinsightfulplayer.com. We hope to turn everyone into insightful players in their own lives. You can also watch other episodes on YouTube and listen through all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for your comments, reviews, and sharing the show with others.